Welcome to episode 9 of my building HMS Victory. I continue to make progress. This episode will be a little shorter. This is kind of in preparation of doing the rope work and running some of it prior to actually tying the lines up into different places. I settled on the colors for the masts and the yards. I changed these out. I started out with the brown, which I'm still using on the rest of the ship, but these wraps I did in black. And again, these are not secured in, they're just floating there. I have a little bit more rope work to do on some of them, some trimming to do. But before I can mount these on the ship, I've got to put these supports for all of the rigging lines. So I need to get those on the ship. I'm gonna look and see if it's thick enough. I would like to drill through these, just 2 little holes with either a small wire or a stick. I've had these snap off after I glue them on, so I'm just gonna give that a try. Maybe we'll see. I'll let you know how that goes in just a few minutes. I've confirmed that this terminology is the first oblique girder is this section of the ship. I replaced this piece. The instructions have it be this thick, but this just fit right in that spot much better. So I went ahead on my own and just swapped that out. I've finished the masts. This is just one of them. I decided to paint the masts tan from the book that I bought. That's what I think they are. I'm utilizing some of these eye hooks. I've started the rat lines down here. Normally you would put dead eyes along here. This ship is just too small to mess with. So you can either go through the hole and tie, just tie a knot in it so you can pull it up. I'm trying to make little loops or eyelets. This is 24 gauge, and this I think is like antique brass maybe, or vintage bronze is what it's supposed to look like. It is very soft, it's thin, bends very easily. I took this tool and about as small a circle as you could make, and then I just twisted it, and that wire would fit through those holes. The holes are pretty small. I might have drilled the holes out slightly, but you don't have a lot of room. This rope here, this will get cut off. This is probably a better technique for this model. I've increased the hole size just slightly because the thread I'm using is a little thicker. And then I just tied a knot underneath on the bottom. And to thread it through, I use these Bead Smith beading needles. And you can tell it just looks like a needle. Once you use it a couple of times, you can see there's a space, and you slip the thread in there and then just pull it through the hole. When you start doing the rope work, you need to work from the center outwards and also from the center front to back. And I made very crude belaying pins out of a toothpick. Again, I go back to my mini belt sander. I started out with a full toothpick, but I still sand this down. The tip will go in there, but you needed to go in a little further than that. But here's what I've been using. I just keep sanding it down real small. Very light touch. And then take the thread, you'll feed it through that hole. It won't go down very far because it's just touching the top of the deck. That's all the further it needs to be. I'll put a dab of wood glue on just the tip of that toothpick. And that was able to go in there. And then I will cut it off. Leave it a little bit above the, ooh, I caught that. That could be a little long, but I can come back after it dries, or I can try and do it now. But it's best to get all these in place before you start doing the rope work, because you're going to have 8 here, 4 on each side. And then you're going to have them on the outside of the ship also. Here are the micro drill bits that I am using. I ordered through Amazon, and you can see the size goes from 0.3 to 1.2. I think that's millimeters. I had almost missed these very small parts, very incredibly fragile, and they have to be assembled. Here is a good technique. This is painter's tape. I've taped it down upside down so the sticky side is up, and then I worked one at a time. You can see here's an example. I put one side at a time together, and then these go on the masts. Now I think I've already assembled my masts, so I'm going to have to maybe cut a little opening in this and then glue it on. We'll see. What I did next is I flipped it over after remember I had just 3 of them glued onto the one, flipped it upside down, and then attached that last one. I do use wood glue there, just a very tiny little amount on the tip of the toothpick. I applied it on both sides of the wood, and now I'm going to let that dry. Part of model ship making is figuring out ways to correct your errors. Even on these tiny little things, notice one end is shorter than the other end. So you have to pay attention to that to get them to line up halfway right. Obviously, I didn't get them glued on exactly straight. I don't even know if that would be possible. But I am making progress. I did put 3 of them in place, and what I ended up doing, I snipped out a piece of wood between these 2 supports and then just slid it on and glued it. I might come back and put a little piece of wood across right there. Technically there would be rat lines, like what I'm working on here, that would get up to that top yard, but these are so tiny, I don't think it's going to be possible, and I'm afraid I would just break them off. So I will probably just leave those right like that. I want to do a couple of updates on some minor changes that I made. I think I had mentioned in this section where I'm doing these rat lines that I tried to make a little wire loop to tie them to. I've gone against that. I'm leaving those there. Just, it doesn't look that good. So because it is so small, I made these holes a little bit larger, pulled the ropes through, and then I put on the opposite side, I put knots on the bottom. But when you pull it up through here, and you're going to have to go up through this crow's nest and then back through the other side, well, you can't get it tight. And it needs to be not too tight, just nice and snug, you know. Don't over tighten. But I want to be able to tie the climbing ropes across. So what I do is, once I run these through, then I will do a simple square knot, and I'll be pulling downward and tightening that. And when I get close, I'm going to take some CA glue and put it towards the top of the rope, because that's where it's all going to come together. And now I'm going to pull downward and tighten. This you can pull fairly snug. Then I'll let that dry and I'll snip it off, and you really cannot see it. Another area that I want to talk about is this. Just a scrap piece of wood. I drilled 4 holes in it, and that will allow me to keep these lines separated as high as I want it to be. And I may end up taking it clear to the top, because I want to be able to tie those rat lines pretty much all the way up on this small of a ship, and they'll just go together. It's too difficult because it's so tiny. I will show you how to tie those in the next episode right at the beginning. I'm just not quite there yet, and I have a video I've already made on how to tie those rat lines. Another area where I had to make a correction, these supports along here, when I drilled out the holes, it was too close to the edge and it split it. I replaced the board. Actually, I left the one underneath. It's still there. And then I glued this one on top of it and drilled a little bit larger holes. Didn't have much choice. I suppose I could have taken the lower one off, but I think for this old ship this will be fine. One of the things nice working with wood is most things you can just remake, and that's what I did there. Even though I'm not putting the sails on this ship, I might put the sails on rolled up. So what I've done here is I'm soaking the sail material in coffee just to see if I can darken it some. So I'm gonna let that sit in there probably a few hours just as an experiment to see what I can come up with. That's it for episode 9. Appreciate everyone watching and following along. A few of you have bought the ship and are going to try and build it. I hope I steered you in the right direction. This type model will help you get some of the skill set that you need to take on one of those larger ships. This is Boiler Dan 1, and as always, thanks for watching.